The Brothers Got Next. It's your boy D, and as always, I'm joined by my boy Kwab. What's going on, man?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. Them Dodgers are 8-0.
Yeah, man. Tani. I mean, that's not a surprise. I mean, bro, when you sent me the clip, I was just like, yeah, this is. I'm starting to like. It's like normal now. Like, oh, what else is going on? Like,
I saw a cool headline. It said 8-0 Tani. It was pretty clever, but
yeah. Man. MLB, they're cracking those home runs early, man. Them bats. We're gonna get into that later about the Torpedo Bats.
Supposedly the Dodgers are trying to go 162-0.
Well, you said that to me. You were like, "Yeah, I don't. That's not gonna happen." I mean,
so far, so good.
Yeah, so far so good. But there'll be games where like guys like take off. They're not gonna play or something.
Man, I do think that a lot of obviously joking, but I think they're gonna have a real chance to break the Mariners record. I believe it was 116 wins.
Ah, gotcha.
I think they might have a shot. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, because who's the last team to repeat?
Ooh, the last team to repeat. I'm about to look that up.
Oh yeah, because I know it's been a while since somebody's actually repeated as champion, so that's going to be tough. You know what I mean? Because we've had
it looks like it was your Yankees, and let's say last MLB team to win consecutive World Series championships was the New York Yankees, who achieved this feat from '98 to 2000. They won 3 in a row.
Wow! So that's been done almost in 25 years.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Man.
That's crazy.
In a minute.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to get into baseball a little later, but we're going to start off the show with your boy, Aaron Rodgers. They call it the Aaron Rodgers watch. He's still holding y'all hostage. Now there are reports to saying that, he actually might retire instead of actually, playing this season. But then there's conflicting reports that he was throwing a DK Metcalf a week ago. So I just want to get your take, man. I mean, look, obviously, I know you and me talked, off pod, and you kind of said we really don't have a lot of choices here, and we don't really have much choice unless you guys are going to draft a quarterback and kind of go that route. It's kind of too late to trade for one. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole situation? What is your gut telling you? What do you think at this point Rodgers should do? Should he just sign, or is it kind of one of those, like, as a Steelers fan, you're kind of like, man, at this point, just let him retire, and we kind of draft and go a different direction?
Well, I put a lot of blame honestly on the Steelers ownership. Like, Rodgers, he is who he is, right? We've seen him do similar things to this before during the offseason, not necessarily feeling like he's all the way plugged in, leaving teams kind of hanging, like, yo, what are you going to do? The Steelers had 2 quarterbacks on the roster, and they claimed after the season they would either try to keep one or the other between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Of course, Justin Fields went to the Jets. Russell Wilson's on the Giants now, so you got neither one. And your plan is to wait on a 41-year-old quarterback? I just don't like that idea. He'll be 42, during the season. So you might as well call Big Ben, see what he's doing if you're looking on waiting for a 47-year-old quarterback. But I blame the Steelers for a lot of this, putting themselves in this situation, not necessarily having a plan after the season. Rodgers, he's going to be Rodgers. And ultimately, if you're Rodgers, why even rush to make a decision? He doesn't care that it's going to inconvenience the Steelers at all. In fact, you would hope that the Steelers say, hey, look, we need you to make a decision by the draft so we can kind of determine what we want to do there. But who knows? Obviously, that, like you said, the video went viral of him and DK Metcalf throwing balls over at UCLA. What does that mean? I have no idea. Of course, right. You know how I felt about this whole thing from the start. Not necessarily something I'm excited about, but unfortunately, he's the best option out there right now. Do I think it's going to make the Steelers a much better team? Not necessarily. I think they're going to be, the same they've kind of been the last 6-7 years, anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe 10 or 9 wins and probably a first round exit, because ultimately they haven't fixed the left tackle issue. We're going to have to, we'll see how the running game looks. The offense just hasn't looked dynamic in maybe 5+ years now. So I don't think bringing in a 41-year-old quarterback that can't move with an average O-line is going to help. So all in all, I'm hoping he makes a decision soon, but ultimately, if he decides to retire, adios, you're a Hall of Famer. You had a great career. I'm not like, oh man, I hope we get him. I think now if the Steelers don't get him, they'll probably have to go with Mason Rudolph, which, I mean, that he's played games before. I think he's a good backup. I'm not going to sit here and say I think he's a starter, But I don't have high expectations for the Steelers next season anyway. I think it's going to be one of those years where it finally comes back to haunt them. Like, oh man, we haven't had a quarterback play at a high level since like 2018 when Roethlisberger led the league in passing yards. So we'll see what happens, man. This is the Rodgers experience, and now I'm experiencing it. I didn't think this day would come that the Steelers were waiting on a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Well, here we are.
Yeah, my whole take on the situation, bro, is I can't remember an athlete ever doing this in any sport as far as holding teams hostage. Not just with Rodgers doing it to the Steelers, he's done this multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk about when he went to the Jets, right? Even when with the Packers, when those years when they didn't know what he was going to do and he came back.
Right.
I just never I can't think of a sport, NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, any team sport where a player has held not just the team, but the league hostage of, okay, what is he going to do? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember that. And I just feel it's such clown behavior. Like, they're allowing this dude to do this time after time again. And you're right. Like, I do blame the Steelers a little bit for allowing this to kind of drag on and go on.
Sure.
Like, why would you allow a 41-year-old man, like grown man, hold a business? I mean, you're a team, obviously, but you're also a business, you're an organization. Hold you hostage to where, okay, you're waiting on him to decide. No, you should have nipped this in the bud from the start. Like, look, here's the timeline. If you don't go by the timeline, that's it. You go and play for somebody else you still want to play, or you can retire.
Yep.
That's what I would have said to him if I'm the GM or the president. One of the Roonies. I'd have been like, look, this is the timetable. You know what I mean? If you don't decide by then, we're gonna move on. You can go, try to find another team or retire. Like, yeah, man, it's just very clownish behavior. Like, I mean, and like I said, I'm surprised just as good as the Steelers are as an organization. I'm just very surprised they allowed this to go on. Like, I'm kind of in shock in a way. Like you said, Rodgers is Rodgers. I'm not surprised what he's doing. This is who he is. Like you said, like again, this is not the first time he's done this. Like I said, he did it with the Jets. He did it when he played for the Packers. So, and I don't even know why even the rest of the league is kind of like, even like, the Vikings supposedly were out, but now you're still hearing that the Vikings are not really out. Like, there's still a slim chance. Like, dude, what he wasn't good last year. Like, y'all acting like this dude was like Josh Allen or Lamar last year. I could get that. I understand
there was
that.
a lot of stat padding, because if you look at his numbers, like I think it was 28 touchdowns and like 11 picks. So it looks like, maybe he did. They were down in a lot of those games.
Yeah.
They won 4 games last year, 4 or 5. So
we threw like 4 or 5 picks. Like,
I
like, bro,
look at his numbers. It's easy to say like, maybe he had a decent year, but if you watch those games, they were behind in a lot of those games. Mm-hmm. Playing from behind, stat padding. So like, I'm not buying what the numbers say, because when I saw him play, heck, I saw a game against Pittsburgh where he threw some really bad interceptions in a loss on Monday night or Sunday night, one of those two. I think it was Monday night, but yeah, I saw it for myself. I saw him, the Steelers playing against them, and I was just like, yeah, this dude is. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bad quarterback, but he's not a dude that you should be like, all right, well, let's wait, let's find out what he wants to do. No,
you only do that for like the top 3 to 5, top 5 quarterback, right? For Josh Allen, Lamar.
I'll wait till freaking the day before week 1. Like, we get them yet? Out for them? Yeah,
yes,
wait.
Exactly, right. Those kind of quarterback, right? You're waiting till like the opening day, like opening weekend. Like, they signed yet? Or
10 minutes before the game.
Yeah, that I agree. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I'd be like, you know what?
Yep.
I still wouldn't be in favor of them doing that. Like, I'd be like, well, they shouldn't be holding a team hostage, but they're that good where, as a team, you gotta be like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna wait. Because you get one of them, you're set for the next 5 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't get it. Like I said, I hope the Steelers at some point, and I agree with you, at the draft kind of say like, all right, enough is enough. He hasn't made a decision. We're at the draft now. We should just go ahead and draft a quarterback. I don't even know if Mason Rudolph is the answer to go to, because eventually you draft.
No, he's not.
Yeah, like my thing is like, if you draft a decent quarterback or somebody that, especially if early on you see him in camp, in the rookie camp, and in training camp, he looks good. Just throw him in there, man. I mean, look, you as you said for yourself, regardless, you don't think the Steelers are going to really have a good outlook next year as far as the season goes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well just throw in the rookie and see what he can do. If he can kind of give you guys a little spark and something different, and yeah, maybe you don't win a lot of games, but you say, okay, we see potential there. As you get more around him, then throw him in there. You know what I mean? Like, I've kind of always said with this whole situation, to me, the Steelers just draft a quarterback. Like, I don't know what round, because I don't know if you want to use your first round pick on a quarterback, but second, third, yeah, get a quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's been some speculation and some reports that they may, that there's rumors that they may try to move up to draft Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some high interest in Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. Jackson Dart, to me, comes across as one of those guys that, like, every year there's this new quarterback that kind of comes out of nowhere, and people are like, oh, who's this guy? And I feel like most of the time that doesn't work out when these like guys come out of nowhere. I remember that. I feel like that was like Will Levis for a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of came out of nowhere. Like, oh, this kid out of Kentucky, like he has a they say he has a big arm. We know the NFL is more than about having a big arm. Like you got to be able to have some other intangibles as well. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think they're going to end up trying. One thing about Omar Khan, the Steelers GM for the last few years, he came in after Kevin Colbert, who I was a big fan of. I thought he did a great job, as the GM for that team for 20 plus years. He came in with Cowher during the Cowher era through the Tomlin era. So Omar Khan is a lot more aggressive. Like, the Steelers weren't doing stuff like this with Kevin Colbert, like trading for DK Metcalf. Like, remember, a lot of the Steelers stars were drafted, whether it's Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Bryant, Emmanuel Sanders. He was a great drafter of these wide receivers.
Right.
And even though some of these guys had some big egos, obviously Tomlin is a good coach to kind of manage those egos. Mm-hmm. But I say all that to say, like, he's going to be aggressive during the draft, and I wouldn't be shocked if he really tried to move up to get a quarterback he really wants. How good do I think Shedeur will be? I'm not too sure, and I get nervous sometimes with the Steelers because they have such a defensive mindset. I do wish they were a little more dynamic offensively. Arthur Smith is kind of a run first guy, so we'll see how that goes. But we'll see what they do, man. I'm excited to see if they do get aggressive and try to get like a Shedeur. That would bring a lot of excitement. But my thing is, are you going to be able to develop him? That's my thing. Yeah,
before we move on, the one thing I want to say is when it comes to the draft, right? I didn't know much about Big Ben when he came out, right? These quarterbacks, you just don't know, right? It's like a 50-50 thing. Like, we can look at them in college, even like the great quarterbacks in college, right? You're saying, oh, well, you think he's going to be really good in the next, next level in the pros. Sometimes that doesn't pan out, right? They were great in college. Doesn't mean it transfers to the next level. And then you have guys that you thought weren't as great in college. Yeah, they were okay. And they end up being really good. Like,
look at Josh Allen.
A Jalen Hurts, right? Who had to transfer, right? So you just don't know. So that's what I'm saying. Like, even with Big Ben, I didn't know about Big Ben when he was in college. He went to a small school with Miami, Ohio. I didn't know much about him. So when y'all picked him, I wasn't like, oh man, it's just going to be great. I was just like, oh, okay.
I was excited though. Remember on the Steelers draft board, they actually were interested in Phillip Rivers.
Right. I remember that. Right. I remember that. He went before Ben. Right. So because the only ones I knew on that draft were Phillip Rivers. I knew Eli. You know what I mean? I didn't really know Big Ben. I knew he played for some small school. I had heard about him, but I didn't know much about him. I didn't watch him when he was in college. So I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. We don't know. You know what I mean? There
was actually another quarterback in the first round that year, which everybody always forgets about. He wasn't good, but remember J.P. Losman?
Oh, yeah, he played for the Bills. Yeah. He went ahead of – they drafted ahead of Ben too, right?
No, he got drafted later in the first round, like towards the end.
Okay.
That would have been bad if they did that.
Yeah, no, he wasn't good. But that's what I'm saying, though. Like, you just don't know. Like, that's why I don't like when people say, well, I don't know about this guy out of college. I don't know about this. But you don't know. You just don't know until
you don't.
It gets to a level. That's why I don't like people getting on a grading college guys going into their rookie year. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You have to go off of college, right? Like, yeah, you can try to dissect every throw and everything, but it's like, bro, you don't know until they play, right? Because a lot of guys are great in college and then they suck in the NFL, or vice versa. They were like okay in college or cool, and then they end up being really good in the NFL. Brady was the 6th round pick. Nobody thought he was going to be what he was. Like,
that's what
I'm saying. Like, I know a lot of people don't really mess with Dak, but Dak was a 4th round pick. nobody thought he would be what he is now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you
look
just
at Brock
don't
Purdy.
know. Brock Purdy, Russell Wilson. Nobody knew Russell Wilson was going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback and be as good as he was early on. Not one analyst was like, yeah, this guy can do. No, nobody said that. So you just don't know. So I just think when it comes to the draft and with quarterbacks, you just have to wait and see. Like, I've been wrong about a lot of quarterbacks. I've been right about some. I saw some in college. I'm like, yeah, I think that dude's going to be good, and they end up being good. And some I've been wrong about. I thought, I was like, yeah, I think he's going to be good. Like I thought Jameis Winston was going to be good, and
I did too. And he showed some flashes.
Yeah.
He did.
Now I was right about Marcus Mariota. I thought he wasn't going to be that great in the NFL.
Oh, you weren't feeling him?
Nah, and I kind of was right. I was like, yeah, he's more of a backup. Like, yeah, he wasn't great. Like, I thought Vince Young was going to be good. He wasn't really that great.
I wasn't sure about Vince Young because I never loved him as a passer.
Got you. And I thought Liner was going to be good, because the USC team. I was like, dude, these guys are going to be really good, but they weren't good. So, again, you just don't know. You have to wait. It's a wait and see thing. It's a wait. And then I agree with you. You always say teams' jobs also is to develop, right? They have to develop their play.
You got to have the coaches
it's also on the team.
You got to have the coaches on staff to develop these guys, man, because, like, I talk about all I've known as a Steeler fan is a defensive culture, right? They've only had defensive head coaches. So, like, I think with Roethlisberger coming in, they had some good guys on the coaching staff, whether it's Ken Wisenhunt, they've had, what's the coach for the Cardinals that won a Super Bowl with the Tampa, that wears the Kango hats.
Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians, thank you. So yeah, Bruce Arians was in there. They had a lot of really good offensive guys to really show Ben how to develop into that quarterback, even though Cowher, was a defensive guy. So, we'll see, man. I mean, Shador would be really exciting, though, right? Remember the speculation that the Cowboys might try to get him?
I've heard that rumor, too. Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys, any rumor with the Cowboys, just take it as a grain of salt.
I love it with the Deion one.
I would say most of the time, if it's a rumor, it ain't gonna happen. At least in the last 5 years, because Jerry hasn't. Jerry's at the Jerry from the '90s where you kind of knew ooh, they talking about that. Yeah, Jerry's gonna go after him and be aggressive again. Jerry's not like that anymore. So 9 times out of 10, if you're hearing as a rumor, it's not gonna happen. They're gonna get somebody that nobody's ever heard of, or like a second, third tier guy. You're like, who's that? So yeah, the Cowboys. The
Cowboys draft decently well. They've drafted a lot. They've had a lot of good draft picks recently. Mm-hmm.
They have. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's move on, man. Some big news yesterday. One of my favorite NBA players, Carmelo Anthony,
Melo,
was notified that he was going to be elected into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. It's going to be first ballot. Obviously,
no surprises there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Everybody pretty much knows me. You know that I love Melo. Probably my second favorite NBA player of all time behind Jordan. I was a fan even back from his Syracuse days, even though he was only there 1 year. That run he had in the that tournament, was it 2003? I mean, it's one of the greatest runs by a freshman, maybe ever.
Our freshman year of college.
Freshman year of college, right. He was a freshman as well. We're all the same year. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of the greatest runs I ever witnessed or saw from a freshman, player ever. You know what I mean? But just want to get your thoughts quickly of where, Melo ranks, what's his legacy, and what did you always just think about? What's the one thing that was kind of like quintessential Melo to you when you think about Melo in the NBA?
Yeah, I have a couple of different thoughts of Melo. One, I've always been a fan of his game. Smooth offensive game. He could attack the rim. He had a really nice mid-range game. Didn't take a ton of threes, but when he had to make big ones, he could make that too. I thought his career, he got off to a quick start too. That's one thing I definitely, you could argue that he could have won Rookie of the Year over LeBron, especially since I believe the Nuggets made the playoffs his rookie season. So anytime I think of Melo, I just think of a pure scorer. I think of also a guy that could be a two-way player when he put in the effort. Like, he wasn't going to be remembered as a defensive player. Like, none of us made a mistake for all defensive guy. But, like, there are times where Melo, especially in the postseason, even against Jacoby's, against some of the star players, would really step up and play pretty well defensively. You just wish you would have seen that throughout his career. But, man, I had a lot of respect for Melo, man. I thought his offensive game was up there with any NBA player we've ever seen as far as the multitude of things he could do. I mean, what was his weakness? He was a pretty good ball handler. He could shoot the mid-range well. Like I said, he could attack the rim. he did everything you wanted your star offensive player to do. Now, as far as some of the criticisms, you know, we never really saw him pair up with. Now, he did have Iverson for a little bit, but we never really saw him pair up and have a great chemistry with another star on the team. I think if you look at his career resume, yeah, it's a lot of great stats, but unfortunately, what are Melo's career defining moments? I feel like a lot of them come in the regular season, not necessarily the postseason. We wish we could have seen him make at least that one finals run. They gave the Lakers, I believe it was the 2009 Lakers, but they gave them a really good run. They that was tough. Remember, they won Game 1 at Staples Center and made that series.
No, they won Game 2. They won Game 2.
Oh, Game 2 they won. Thank you.
They won Game 2. They should have won Game 1. I think Ariza stole the inbounds pass because remember they were controlling most of the game in Game 1, and then Ariza had like a big play at the end of the game where it kind of sealed it for you. Yeah, but they actually should have been up 2-0 in that series. But
going back to Denver,
they went back to Denver
and Kobe just
man,
Kobe.
Right, so, there you go.
Yeah. As much as I appreciate Melo, I do think that there was some to be left desired. But as far as offensive game, I mean, there aren't too many players in NBA history I'm saying are significantly better than Melo offensively. I just can't do that. You know, I even thought he had an underrated nice little run after with the Knicks, of course.
Right,
when I think of Melo, I think of the Nuggets, but he kind of rejuvenated the Knicks. Like I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Like he made the Knicks, you know,
relevant.
Yeah, he made them relevant after all. I'll never forget, we went to a game at the Garden when Melo was there during their, I believe, like 55-win season. They ended up losing to the Pacers that year, a really gritty Pacers team with Paul George.
Right.
And that I was hoping they could win that series because that would have put them in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
But yeah, I wish he would have had a healthy Amari. It would have been nice to see them together because Amari, when he first got there, remember he was an MVP candidate when he first got to New York. So it would have been nice to see them paired together and playing at a high level. But even after the Knicks with the Thunder, he had a nice little stint with the Thunder, and you know obviously even had a hot second with the Lakers as well. So
right.
Shout to Melo, man. Congrats making it first ballot. And he just seems like such a smooth brother, man. He's such a cool cat. It's great to see what his son is doing. I'm excited to see him.
Playing at Syracuse next year.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah. That's your guy.
Yeah, man. Look, man, Melo, the one thing I think why I've always been a fan, Melo's kind of always moved to the beat of his own drum. He's always kind of he's never followed the crowd, like followed the leader. Like, you know, of course there were rumors that he was supposed to be the third Heat beside, you know, instead of Bosh.
Part of the Heatles.
Part of the Heatles, right. But, you know, obviously he chose to take the money, you know, in Denver. Which, like, look, people criticize him for that. But listen, man, these players are also setting their families up and themselves up for financial wealth for the future, right? So I'm never going to get on a player for making a financial decision about, well, should I go somewhere and take less money to quote unquote win a championship, or should I take more money and set myself up, you know what I mean, for the future? I don't get why he's always criticized for that, because I get you have guys that make the sacrifice for the money to win championships, but I guarantee if you ask those same guys, would they have loved to take the money? They probably would have still said, yeah, I would love to take the money. But they wanted to win, and that's fine. If you want to sacrifice your financials for winning to be remembered as a champion, I'm all for it. That's fine. And I know that's what sports is about. But you should also not criticize a player for taking the money when it's offered to them, right? When they know they can make that money and they may have to take less to go and be. Remember, and let's be real, Melo would have been the third option. You know what I mean? On the Heat, because he was the guy in Denver. You know what I mean? He was the star player. And same thing with the Knicks. He was the star player once he got there. So I don't blame him for doing that. Again, he made his own decision. He didn't follow what everybody else wanted him to do. And that's, like I said, I've always respected him about that. He's never been like a guy that's like, oh, he's going to do what everybody else wants him to do or should do. He's like, no, I'm going to do it my way. If I fail, so be it. You know what I mean? Like, but I did it my way. You know what I mean? So I've always respected him about that. Another thing I know, you know, you didn't mention was I was looking at a stat earlier today. He's like top 3 of all time in clutch points. Like as far as clutch shooting, like, you know, last, I think 5 seconds of the game. I think he's like number 3 or something like that behind Jordan and Kobe or something like that as far as clutch shots, you know, when it comes to the end of the game. So Yeah, we all knew he could score the ball, but the one thing I think that I loved, and I think I was just to mention to you when he was playing, was like, dog, he's so clutch. Like, when the ball was in his hands the last couple seconds, I was always confident he can make, the shot or make the play.
Yeah, he was always clutch.
Exactly. I never thought like, oh man, we're gonna, we can lose because I always, every time he had the ball in his hand, I was confident. You know what I mean? So that's another thing I always loved about him. And as you mentioned, he's a top 10 scorer all time in NBA history. You know what I mean? That's big for somebody that I feel like a lot of people criticize and get on him, right, for only, obviously he didn't have championship success. He only made it out the first round, I think, twice ever in his career. Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest, bro, not all of that was his fault. Like the Denver years, like you said, he had the Iverson that a couple years, but that was like, Iverson was still good, but he was kind of toward the end of his prime, right? Melo was kind of young. And then he had the 1 year in, like you said, in New York when he got to the second round, they lost to the Pacers. And Amari was hurt. After that, he had a bunch of like role players, and he was the guy. Yeah. They were 55 games with Mike Woodson. So I think there are times that people don't give him credit for where he tried and he wanted to win, you know what I mean? But I don't feel like sometimes the organization, whether it was the Knicks or the Nuggets, really put the pieces around him. You know what I mean? Like they didn't really give him, the pieces. Like the year he went to the Eastern Conference Final, I mean, Chauncey Billups was still good, but he was in the end of his career. He was like past his prime. He was still good and productive, but Kenyon Martin wasn't the same guy that he was on the Nets. So he always had guys. I felt like he always got guys that were like either past their prime, but they were still productive, but they weren't like the stars anymore. You know what I mean? Only Iverson I can think of off the top of my head. I'm like, oh yeah, Iverson was still kind of good, but he wasn't Iverson from 01. You know what I mean? Like he didn't get that Iverson. So yeah, I think unfortunately he gets blamed for a lot of things that were beyond his control. Now that the second when he re-upped with the Knicks that in 2014, I thought he should have left the Knicks. I think that was the one criticism I had. I thought he shouldn't sign back with the Knicks because I know he had a chance to go to Chicago when it was good. When they had Rose, Joakim Noah, you know what I mean? The Bulls had a squad. They had Thibodeau was still there. So my thing was that year, I thought he should have went to the Bulls. I kept saying like, Melo, go to the Bulls. Get off the Knicks. Like they're going nowhere. You know what I mean? Like you could kind of see it. But he wanted the money, and I get it. He was like, look, they're giving me $20+ million, and I think the Bulls can only offer him so much because, remember, I think at that time it was where the team that holds your bird rights, they can give you more money than a new, a team that if you're going to leave the team that has your bird rights, they can only offer you like a certain amount of years, a certain amount of money. So I get that. He wanted to take more money. So he was about his bag. And like I said, I'm never going to get on a player in any sport if they want to go get more money. That's their right. You know what I mean?
Do you think Melo, though, should have – because, look, he had a lot of money, whether it was with Denver, with the Knicks. Is there a part of you that wishes he would have kind of maybe tried to get a title, like the legacy part of his career as opposed to the financial part? Do you wish that he would have maybe made decisions to try to get a championship instead of going after the money?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the Knicks one when he's re-signed with the Knicks,
he should have went to Chicago.
He should have went to Chicago. That was the time he should have left. Yeah. That's when I thought he should have said, "Okay, I'm going to take less money and see what this is going to happen." Now, hindsight 2020, if you remember, he kind of I don't want to say he made the right decision going back to this. Remember, Derrick Rose. That's when Derrick Rose ended up getting hurt. Remember, he wasn't the same road. That's when the next year he tore his knee or his Achilles. Remember, he had that really bad injury.
If Melo's there, though, maybe he takes some pressure off.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We don't know that, right?
There was a lot of pressure on Rose offensively to carry that team.
It was.
I'm not going to count on guys like Taj Gibson and some of these other guys.
Right.
They were fine. They were good players. Like Luol Deng was a good player, but like Melo would have. Came in there and averaged 24 a game. Rose probably around the same. So it would have taken some pressure off of him. So you never know.
That's true. Yeah. So that's the one. That's the one time I would say I thought he made the wrong decision by going back to New York. He should have went to Chicago. You know what I mean? At the time, before we knew about the Rose injury and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I thought because Thibs was still there, the Bulls were still, they were still a playoff team. They were, going to the Eastern Conference Finals, going to, getting past the first round. So I thought if he went to the Bulls, he may have a shot to at least get to the final. I don't know if he still would have won a title, but he at least would have had a shot. You know what I mean? To contend for one. So that's the only time I would say I thought he should have, left. But I don't blame him for not going to the Heatles. Like, he was like not even in his prime yet when that happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He was still coming into his own, and he was the guy in Denver. So he was like, no, I want to stay in Denver. Like, they drafted me.
I respect that. Yeah, I respect that.
Yeah, like, they drafted me. They're offering me more money. Yeah, like, yo, I'm going to stay. I don't mind being. He wants to be the guy. You know what I mean? Again, let's be real. And he would have been the third option. He was, you know, they had LeBron, they had Wade. He was going to be the third guy. You know what I mean? And maybe in his mind, he was like, I don't want to be the third guy. I want to be the guy.
Yeah.
And I
understand that.
Yeah.
You know, it's that, like, that Kobe mentality, and like
right.
even these guys that are like, I want to carry a squad. Like,
exactly.
I want to be that guy.
Not everybody wants to join a super team, believe it or not. Everybody thinks that all these players want to, they want to win. They want to win championships. But not everybody wants to have a big three. You know what I mean? Not everybody wants to do that.
You know, another thing that comes to mind for me and Melo before we wrap this up, honestly, is the draft, the 2003 draft. First off, it was a great draft. But second, how the Pistons had an opportunity to draft either him, Bosh, or Wade, and they went with Darko Milicic. Now, of course, hindsight's 2020. I get it. But even during the draft, I'm like, oh, they're going with Darko? Like, why not go with Melo? I remember saying it then. And yeah, that ended up being one of the bigger blunders in a while with the not taking.
Yeah, now look, like you said, hindsight 2020, they did win the title, you know, the next year, but a lot of people say, well, if you got Melo, you're winning multiple.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, because they went the next year, they went 7 games with the Spurs and lost in 7. Now, let's be real. You have Melo in that 7-game series. That series probably only goes 7. You probably win 6. You probably win that series in 6.
Probably, yeah.
So, yeah, you're talking about multiple championships. I mean, you probably could have won at least 3. You know, I'm sure they're going to win 2, but you could probably possibly have won 3 if you're that Pistons team with Billups, you know, Rasheed Wallace, Hamilton, Ben Wallace. Yeah, you could have won.
Tayshaun Prince.
Well, so the Tayshaun thing, remember, he was in the same draft as Melo. I think he came in the same draft, so they probably would have drafted him.
You don't think so? Even though they drafted Darko and him as well.
Darko didn't really play. They didn't play him because Tayshaun ended up being so good. They started Tayshaun. It was Tayshaun, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Billups, and Hamilton. That was the starting 5. Darko was supposed to come with the bench, but they never played him. And then when they would have done that to Anthony, Anthony would have started. You know what I mean? Now, you're right. They could have still probably drafted Tayshaun, I guess, later, but he would have been coming off the bench. He would have been the 6th man. So I guess it still could have worked. You know what I mean? Yeah,
so interesting. So Tayshaun Prince was the 23rd overall pick that year. So they took Darko 2nd. And
it took him 23rd.
It took him 23rd. Interesting.
And Tayshaun Prince was a good, you know, productive player. I mean,
he was a good defender too.
Great defender, right? Great defender. He could score. You know, remember he could shoot the 3. Remember he was like a good set shot, like 3-point shooter. Yeah.
My mistake. Tayshaun Prince was actually already there. He was the 2002 draft, not the 2003.
Oh, okay. So right, my thing is even if you get Melo, you say, all right, Melo's going to start. Tayshaun comes off the bench, which I don't think
he'd be a great bench player.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he would have been a great 6th man. So it still could have worked, but hey, you know, that's why they say what could have been, but it wasn't possible.
Props to Melo, man.
Yeah, for sure. Congrats. But yeah, man, you know, we normally don't touch on a lot on baseball, especially not this early, but man, the home runs have been just out of this world to start the season. Whether it's the Yankees, my Yankees, whether it's Kwab's Dodgers. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the Ohtani home run last night, and then about a week
on our typical Wednesday.
Right. Thursday. And then of course last week you heard about the Yankees scoring like 12 runs, hitting like 9 home runs. I think they set a record, or tied a record, I think, for most home runs in a game by a team. It was nuts. So obviously the big controversy now is this torpedo. They call it the torpedo bat. So what it does basically is so baseball has this rule, I guess, that with the bats, you can't change the diameter of the bat, but you can change like the edge or the weight. You can change the weight of it, right? Yep. And of course you can't have a cork bat. You know, that's always been a thing. You can never cork the bat. But this torpedo batting, I guess, changes it puts less weight in the upper part of the bat and more on the lower
middle, right?
Right, middle. So it gives, I guess, the hitter a more they can grip it and it's a better just handle of the bat. Now they're saying this just came out 2 days later. Now they're saying they may get rid of it because now, I Major League Baseball, to me, they always kind of get it wrong, to me, because you have something going here where, people want to see home runs. Like they always say, chicks dig the long ball, right? You've heard that all our life. And you're getting good ratings off of this, and people are actually watching baseball. So my question is, like, why would you now get rid of it? Because they're hitting a lot of home runs? That's what you want. Nobody wants to see a 2-0 game when a pitcher's dueling. Like, I don't want to see that to the playoffs. That's fine in the playoffs, but in the regular season, I want to see home runs. I don't want to see. Yeah. I don't want to see pitching matchups. I don't want to see Cole go up against Kershaw, and it's a 1-0 win. I don't want to see that. In the playoffs, that's fine because you're just trying to win games. But in the regular season, I just want to get home runs. But what are your early thoughts on? I know baseball. I mean, we're still early on, not even 10 games in. But what are your early thoughts on this?
I think clearly the bats are legal, and
right. They're not doing anything illegally. Mm-hmm. You're right.
I'm hoping that baseball goes against the trend and like just sticks with it, because ultimately we're going to see the home runs slow down. I don't think it's going to be every game 10 home runs. So I think it's exciting. Anytime. Look, it's like we met during the steroids era of baseball, right? Which is super exciting.
McGuire, yeah, mm-hmm.
Super exciting. So any way you can bring that level of excitement back, like you said, I'm all in for. Now, baseball has done a couple things to speed up the game as well, so I'll give them some props for that. Like they're trying, and there's a lot of star power in baseball right now between Judge and Ohtani and Juan Soto. Like there's a lot of big home run hitters. The star power is there. So if we can get the home runs on top of the star power, and I like the fact that the two big market teams are playing well. I mean, we got Dodgers, Yankees last season, so I'm all in for it, man. I'm hoping that you're wrong and they don't ban the bats or something like that. That would suck. At least let it ride out throughout the season. I'm sure they'll at least do that. But come on, MLB, like you're finally getting people to watch your product again. Like just stick with it.
Thank you. And that's my thing with Major League. It's always been my problem. They never get it right. Like they have something good going and then they ruin it. They'll change a rule or get rid of something. Like, dude, why are you getting rid of that? Like that's what
baseball is very protective of its records. Like it's been around for such a long time. So they feel like
it's America's pastime. I get it.
If there's anything that could jeopardize the records that were held from guys back in the day, like, today's game, they have these bats and they're able to hit all these home runs, where guys like Willie Mays and got Hank Aaron's of the world, they didn't have that, and they were still able to crush 700 plus home runs. So I think baseball is very protective of their history, and they don't want it to be tarnished in any way by these guys having this major advantage. Although it's going to make the MLB a ton of money. I mean, like you said, if a team's hitting home runs, people are coming to the park.
Exactly. And that's what it should ultimately be. Look, again, baseball, while it's a sport, it's also a business. This is an organization, right? Your goal should be to make the most money, like to, get the biggest profit you can get. And if that's doing something where it's not illegal, you've already said, you've come out and said, well, it's not illegal to, make the bat, as far as like the middle, like I said, the end, it's not illegal. Why are you then going to change it? Because people are talking about it. Because to be honest, I don't even know what the negative part of it is about, because all the analysts, everybody I've watched in baseball say, this is great for baseball. Nobody's been negative about it. It's almost like it was brought to the attention. So now baseball's like, whoa, now it's getting too much attention. We got to take it away. That doesn't make any sense. You do the complete opposite of that. You say, okay, now everybody's talking about us. This is great. We're going to make money. That's what you want. And I get you want to be protective of America's pastime, and it's the oldest, game as far as in American sports. I get all that. But it's like, bro, we're here to be entertained, and you're there to make money off of it, right? Like these stars are there to entertain, win, and make money. Like that should be the goal. Not, I get you want to protect records, and you don't want to cheat the game, and that's why with the whole steroids era, that's why they don't acknowledge guys who use steroids and they don't put them in the Hall of Fame. I get all that. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. But don't kind of hurt yourself by something that's going good, that's not illegal, and because people are starting to talk about it and start to say, oh wow, look at baseball, they're trying to do something different, and then you take it away just because oh no, we can't hurt the records. We can't hurt the past guys because they didn't have a torpedo bat. Who cares?
Maybe the MLB surprises us. Maybe the MLB surprises us. Maybe they keep it around.
I hope so, because like I said, right now it's just in the talks that they might take it away. Nothing's been, set in stone.
Yeah, nothing's been set in stone. I think, and especially if more batters decide to start using the torpedo bat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing if more people start doing it, because then there's, but we'll see. If it's a widely spread thing, heck, if everybody starts using them, then maybe it creates an even playing field, and that'll be a good thing. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so before we go into the next, the one thing I want to talk about, and that you said, is that a lot of the star players are not using, like Judge is not using it, Ohtani's not using it. It's for guys that are like those, like, they're not like the big home run hitters, they're like the in-between. Like, they hit maybe like 20 home runs a season, you know what I mean? They're not hitting 40, 50 home runs. It's really for the guys that are like the middle of the lineup, right? Like middle of the lineup, maybe lead off or like at the end. It's not for the guys like the Sotos, the Ohtanis, the Judge, because Judge even came out and said, I don't use it. He said, I don't even use a torpedo bat. Mm-hmm. And look at, you see what he's done already. It's not really for him or Ohtani or the big guys. It's more for those guys that are like in the middle. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't understand the whole big fuss about it, because it's just helping out hitters that just want to get better at hitting hitting the long ball. The guys that are the stars are going to hit it regardless. They don't need it. They're not even using it. Mm-hmm. So that's even more reason of like, okay, why are you taking this away? Was helping guys that are not like the big guys to improve their numbers. That's what you want. So hopefully, like you said, man, hopefully they get this right. They talk about it. They don't get rid of it. It's good for baseball. You guys are getting a lot of pub, especially this early. Most of the time, people are not talking about baseball in April. You know what I mean?
Not at this time. It's
not at this time. People are not talking about it. I mean, it's 162 games. Like, yeah, we don't start talking about baseball until after the All-Star break most of the time. Like in July. Not in April. So I don't, I hope MLB just, like, once they talk about it, like, look, let's, like you said, at least keep it for the season and then revisit it in the offseason. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so, I think they will.
Yeah. All right, man. So we're going to have a new segment, right? Because every time me and Kwab talk a lot, like, off pod during the week, of all these things going viral, right? Just at different topics, right? But we're going to talk about some different topics that went viral for the past week. The internet is undefeated, by the way. Some funny memes, them integrating different videos into what happened. It's been hilarious. But the first thing I want to talk about is, oh boy, the first thing is Kanye West had an interview with DJ Akademiks. I think it was on Monday. Yes, Sunday or Monday, I believe, of this week. And boy, I'm sure you saw clips, or you don't have to watch the whole thing. I mean, I wouldn't even encourage anybody to watch the whole thing.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. It's gonna hurt your brain. And yeah, I mean, it was it was out there. But anyway, he talked to DJ Akademiks about a number of different topics. He came out in a black KKK outfit, which was, I mean, I was already not even wanting to watch it after I saw that. But it was just very bizarre. He talked about not wanting to have kids with Kim K, talking, getting on Jay-Z, Jim Jones, Playboy Cardi, John Legend. I mean, he was just going on everybody. I'm going to get your opinion about the interview and about Kanye at this point, and I'll give my rebuttal. But from what you saw, and what did you think of the interview, and what is Kanye even now to anybody? I mean, what? I mean, at this point, I don't even know what to say about this guy anymore. But I'll get your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about. I mean, Kanye's been kind of whacked out for a while now. Unfortunately, I feel like since his mom passed away, it's been kind of on the decline since then, right? But you see him wearing this a black KKK, outfit. And you don't even need to hear the audio. You just see it and you're like, all right, well, like none of us were really that surprised by it. We were like, oh, whoa, what's Kanye doing? We're like, oh, that's Kanye.
Right.
Kanye being Kanye. I mean, I honestly think this is just an example of just like some people can't really handle fame. Like he's been famous for a long time.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man, after a certain while, college.
Yeah, after a while, it can kind of drive people crazy, man.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing it right now. And, look, man, if you have children, even if you honestly feel like You probably shouldn't have had any. You don't say that publicly. Like your kids are gonna see that. Like, come on now. So like, why was he saying that? Oh, I never wanted kids with Kim. Like, what's the point of saying that now? What good is that going to do at this time? You know, y'all are trying to do the, you know, obviously y'all are trying to raise kids together. Obviously you're apart, but you're trying to raise together. This is not a good thing for the kids to see. Like, why would you think it's wise to do that? And he thinks he's just this genius. He thinks he's so innovative. He thinks he's just. He thinks he's God's gift to earth. It's just like, you're not, man. You're really not. Like, you're not saying anything that has me like, oh, did you hear what Kanye said? Like, wow. Like,
right.
I'm not buying it. I actually, I won't say I feel bad for him, but I honestly think it's just a perfect example of just some people can't handle fame, and it's affected him negatively, and it's sad to see, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything you said, you know, it's things I was going to say and hit on. I'll add that, you know, also he wore that swastika, you know, chain, and then he had the Sean John shirt on, I guess, support Diddy. I mean,
and why is his wife always naked?
Well, suppose
like she always like barely has clothes on. I don't.
Yeah, then they're also off and on. Like today, I guess I don't know. Like I said, we're recording this on a Thursday, so today there was a story that supposedly she's left him again. And she tried to get him like committed, and he was like, "Nah, I'm good. You're not gonna commit me." Yeah. Look, I said this to you guys a long time ago. Kwab, you can bear my witness. I told you I was done with Kanye like after graduation. I was like, when 808 Heartbreaks come out, I was like, "Bro, I'm good. I'm done." Like I saw the decline then. You know what I mean? So, and I'm just talking about musically, like, you know. Dark Twisted Fantasies was a good album, but please,
good album.
Yes, people hype it up and say it's a classic. No, it's not a classic. It's a good album.
A lot of people argue against you on that one.
Oh, of course they do, and that's fine. We can argue against it. I would love to have anybody on this pod. You could come, and we can argue about it. Yep. And to argue if it's a classic, it's not a classic. It's a good album. It's his last good album. But okay, all right. So let's say I'll give you that album. Well, since then, it's pretty much been downhill. Yeezus, Life of Pablo, Donda 2, Vultures. None of them have been good.
I couldn't even listen to Vultures. I couldn't
No.
I couldn't get through the whole thing. Now, I will say Life of Pablo does have some good tracks on it. Overall, it's not a great record, but there are definitely some good songs.
I only like the track with Kendrick. That's the only track I like.
I like the song of Rihanna too.
Okay, yeah, that's the only one. But Donda was awful too. I can't listen to that. Donda. He has a song where he's just saying that for the whole time. It's like
people thought it was a bang. People thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You're trying to big up your mom, but this is not a good album. It's not a good song. Like, yeah, man, he's been gone, like you said, for a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time, like at least a decade now, at least.
What disturbs me is that, you know, this whole thing of going after the Jews and, you know, the swastika, it's just very disturbing to me, right?
Yeah.
I'm not Jewish, obviously you're not, but, you know, we're African American. We know what Jewish people have gone through with their legacy and the Holocaust and all that stuff. It's just unnecessary. And I understand he's been mad about his business dealings with Adidas and different things, but that's not how you go about it. You know, going after a group of people, you know, especially like we know as Black people what we've been through, right? And what we continue to go through. Why would you do that? Like, it's just, I don't understand. I don't get it. And you're right. I'm getting sick and tired of these people giving him excuses like, oh, well, he's Kanye. He's different. He's just, you know, he's a deep thinker. No, he's crazy. He doesn't need to be committed. Like, this is not normal behavior. You know what I mean? He's a deep thinker. He's deep. No, stop that. Don't stop with that BS. Don't give me that BS. I see it on Twitter like, oh, people, he's just misunderstood. No, misunderstood is like Bill Walton. Like, Bill Walton was like a hippie. He was misunderstood. Yeah, that's a misunderstood person. You know what I mean? Like, Kanye's not misunderstood. He's just, like you said, he's somebody that can't.
I don't even take him seriously at this point, though. Like, when I see him, I'm like, yeah, it's just Kanye being Kanye, man.
Right.
But we're never going to get the, you know, people, you know, that saying people miss the old Kanye. We're never going to get that Kanye
Never. So
I don't even want him back. At this point, it's fine.
I mean, he's almost 50 years old. What is he, 47? It's like,
I enjoyed the Kanye that we got. That was fun.
Right.
It was college. I'm good. I don't need. Oh man, I'm over wanting the old Kanye back. I just want him to go away at this point. Just go away.
I agree. Yeah, man. But yeah. So that's enough of the Kanye talk. But anyway, we got another viral video that went viral this week. So singer and pastor Marvin Sapp, I guess was at his church, and basically he was asking for $40,000 in donations or whatever, right? So he gets up on the mic and he tells the people, "Hey, I need $40,000. I need." There was 1,000 people, I guess, in the congregation. He kept saying 1,000 people. So there's 1,000 people in the congregation. He's like, "Hey, I need $20 from you guys." And then the people that were up with him, like, I guess what's it called, the pulpit? Yeah, I'm not a church person. I'm not gonna lie, but at the pulpit, he said, "I need $100 from you guys," and then he said, I also need $20 from people that are watching online." But the biggest controversy was he told the ushers to close the door, close the doors, pretty much like trapping the congregation from not leaving. So, my wife was like, she sent me the video. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, and listen, look, this is my personal thing. I'm not a big church person. I've always thought with churches that, look, I'm like, I respect people's religion. If you're religious, that's fine. But just me personally, I've never been a church person. I've always thought that, especially these big pastors that have these mega churches, it's about money. It's not about you and God and all that. They're trying. This is the oldest trick in the book. This has been going on for years and years and years. And people don't really want to talk about it. You know what I mean? But I get it, because you don't want to kind of badmouth people, and especially in church and stuff. But right. It's been going on for years. Like, this has been going on since I was a little kid. Like, my parents are not very religious either. Like, we weren't big church people, but it's all, some of it is like a scam. They're just trying to get money off of you. You know what I mean? It's the whole
prosperity gospel.
Yeah, they got the building fund. They got the we got to make not just the building fund, but they got the parking lot fund. They got the pastor needs this fund. It's like, well, why am I giving money to make the pastor's life better when I need to make my life better? But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But as far as what happened, yeah, I'm gonna just say this off the bat. First of all, if I was in there and you locked the doors, we gonna have some problems. Like,
don't lock me into any building.
No, we gonna have some issues. There's not gonna be a lot of godly stuff going on if you lock the doors. Like, them ushers, me and them would have had a talk, and it would have been a nice talk.
You gonna be scrapping in church?
Yeah, for sure. And you saw a lot of memes that so he has that song "Never Would Have Made It." I don't know if you've heard it. So people are saying never would have paid it. So I thought that was pretty funny. They talk about never would have paid it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw the clip. What were your thoughts on it? Yeah. And I'm sure you watched it with your wife, with Maya. Y'all probably like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think I am a fan of church, but of course there are different types of churches, right? Like, you can find the right church for you. It doesn't have to be these big mega churches, but like, for example, me and Maya go to one here in Baltimore, or in the Baltimore area, that we really like, right? And they say a lot during the service that, like, look, we're not going to be here to ask for your money. Obviously it helps with the church, but like, there's no pressure on you to do that. And I like that, you know what I mean? And it makes me want to give even more when I hear something like that. But when it comes to locking people in the building and demanding this and that, it's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Like,
take it down with that.
I'll never forget, there was that what was the name of that? It was a Creflo Dollar. First of all, that's what a name to have as a last name Dollar.
No, I was gonna say, if you don't mind telling the audience about the story that always cracks me up, that you told me in college about when you went to high school and the pastor you had. I don't know if you want to. If you don't want to share it, it's fine. But I mean, it's just something that every time we've talked about this kind of stuff, it's always I've been on the floor laughing. And I think you had my wife laughing when you first told her about the story.
There's a couple different stories for that. I just remember being young and hearing something along the lines of, "Oh, if you don't pray to God to forgive you for all your sins, you'll die of cancer," or something. I was like, "Whoa, like that doesn't sound very godly."
It's not. It's like, not at all.
There was some drama with him chasing somebody in his car after church, and he said he didn't see him.
That's the funniest story I've ever heard.
You don't see the guy. He almost hit him. He's like, "Oh, I didn't see him."
It was a deacon or something, right? It was a deacon he had an issue with.
And so, but I say all that to say, like, I don't I'm not in the business of judging people that do want to go to those big mega
Right,
churches.
right.
Like
Yeah,
whatever,
for sure.
yeah, whatever gives you your release, whatever gives you peace, whatever, helps you kind of. One thing I like about church, it kind of gives you that reset button for the week, right? Kind of clears your mind, go into the next week feeling good. But yeah, when I hear about people demanding this much and locking people in churches, it's just like, well, one, I'm not going there. One, and two, it's like people have a choice, right? Like you don't have to necessarily engage in that type of, you don't have to go to that type of church if you don't want to. But people these mega churches, they're not going anywhere, man. Like they're not always going to be around. They're always.
I would say just to end this, like I've always said to people, when it comes to religion, you should practice or preach what makes you comfortable, right? And also, you can do it in the comfort of your own home. Like you always hear people say, like you should have your own personal relationship with God, right? And I believe that, right? You should have your own personal. Like, don't try to go to church for everybody else. Do it if that's what you want to do. Do it for you. If staying at home for you and praying and whoever you pray to, if that makes you more comfortable, do that. And like you said, we shouldn't judge that because they don't go to some building to do it, right? Like you shouldn't be forced to go to some building. But I'll say, just getting back to Marvin Sapp, like again, there would have been real repercussions and issues if I would have been at that door and my wife and we're trying to get out and you're telling me, no, I can't leave. Yeah, it would have been a lot of ungodly stuff happening. Yeah. So we might have been squabbling in church.
Oh, man.
And that would have been that, because
you would think that's the last place you get into a fight.
Exactly. And it's reports that now, the conflicting reports, the reports that he got arrested for, quote unquote kidnapping, or he's at least they're looking at him as far as bringing charges to him. Because he pretty much held those people hostage. He closed the doors, telling people they couldn't leave. You can't do that. That's also illegal. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's exactly. A church. That's that's supposed to be a free, like that. You don't get charged to come into church. You know what I mean? Like that's at least how I grew up. Like people go to church all the time. It's supposed to be a free, like, like if you're Catholic, you go for confession, you go and you leave. They don't say, hey, okay, before you leave, you got to pay me $100. It's not the club. You know what I mean? So, but like, I agree with everything what you said. You know what I mean? It's like, everybody to each his own, how you want to, which church you want to go to, how you want to worship. If that's how you want to do it, great. Like, that's just not me. Like Kwab said, he goes to church with his wife. Me and my wife are kind of like, we're spiritual and we kind of do our own thing. You know what I mean? We don't need to go to a building to, I don't need to donate to the building fund to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now the church did come out and say, like, it wasn't our intent to like hold people hostage. And
right.
He came out and said that, well, none of the money goes to me. I'm like,
that's a whole nother topic.
I'm not here to accuse, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic for another day. But before we get out here, there's a couple other things we want to talk about. One other thing that went viral. This is actually, for me and Kwab, this is near and dear to our heart. We love this with the next thing we're talking about. So I hit up Kwab a lot sometimes. Like, I can't think about what I'm gonna eat for lunch, and I'll hit him up like, "Hey man, what do you have any suggestions for lunch or whatever?" So the other day he hit me up and he was like, "Yo, I need some suggestions for like snacks, like ice cream or whatever," right? So I was like, "Yo," and we have been talking about it before, but there's been a lot of these new ice cream kind of sandwiches going viral, even ice cream bars. So one of them is the Rice Krispie ice cream bar, which looks amazing, by the way. Kwab, I know you had the chance to try it. I have not tried it yet. I have yet to find it. I think it's sold out everywhere I've been.
So I tried the one that comes in a pint. There's also a pint one. Did you know that?
You didn't try the sandwich one?
No, I did not try the sandwich. I tried the one that comes in the pint. I wouldn't assume that they taste too different.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But yes, I should have clarified. I tried the one that came in the pint.
Got it.
Not necessarily the sandwich. It was really good. You told me about this Butterfinger one though,
bro. Yeah, I know you tried that the other day.
Me and the wife had it last night. Oh yeah, it's
amazing.
We actually had to have a couple of them. It was.
So I haven't done that yet. The one thing I think I told you to try, and I encourage everybody else to try either, is also that Eggo. The Eggo has there's
a couple different flavors though. Which one?
Yeah. So the one I like is called like butter maple. It's like maple butter. I don't know, something in that line. So they have that one. They have the blueberry, and they have the chocolate chip.
So you have not tried blueberry or chocolate chip?
I have not. I've only tried the maple butter, the butter maple, bro. It's
like that, huh? That. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try those. Now I was telling you how much I love the Biscoff ones too.
You put me onto those. Those are amazing.
The white chocolate one. The white chocolate one is crazy.
Yes, I agree. Yeah,
bro. I want one now. Damn.
Yeah, you put me onto that one because I saw it on YouTube from one. Okay, I guess I'm plugging this guy, but this guy his name is Snack Daddy. Pause.
Yeah, he gives some great. He gives some great. Right.
Yeah, he gives some great. Some great, like, for snacks, food, or where to go, and he's very like he describes the food and all that. Yeah, that's the first time I saw that. And then you told me you had tried it, and you were like, "Bro, you got to get it." And I finally found it at Target and at Safeway, and yeah, I think I got it about 3 or 4 times last summer. I
always make it a goal to try like the new ice creams. I'm just a big ice cream guy. To not always a good thing. I feel like I could eat ice cream if it wasn't like detrimental to my health. I could eat ice cream every single day if I.
Yes,
if
I agree. I'm with you.
There's
it's hard. I like when you told me about a lot about the new stuff. I went and got fewer boxes, but I try to wait till the weekend to eat them because it's tough though. I'll pull my freezer out. And I'm like, man, I want one now, but it's hard. Yeah.
There was one that he recommended. The IG reviewer. There's one that he recommended from Trader Joe's. I don't know. Have you ever tried a horchata before? Like when you go to like Mexican restaurants, it's like a cinnamon rice drink.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever had it.
They have it like at Roberto's. It was one of
I like churros. I'm a big churro guy. I love churros. Yeah, but I've had churro ice cream.
There's this horchata ice cream. I think it's seasonal though. They have it at Trader Joe's.
Amazing.
Phenomenal. A+ rating. A+. I'm a Trader Joe's guy. I feel like Trader Joe's is not for everybody. I love Trader Joe's, but yeah, for our listeners right now, try their horchata ice cream.
Yeah, and another thing I was gonna say, because I told you I love churros. Speaking of churros, I think I told you about this last year, a couple years ago. Haagen-Dazs has this churro caramel ice cream, bro. It's amazing. They have it in.
Tried it, but I don't remember.
Yeah, they have it in a pint, and you can get it in the bar. It doesn't really matter which one. They're both amazing. Yeah. So normally, and that's a seasonal thing as well. They only bring that out like in the summer. It's not a year-round thing, but yeah, that's amazing as well. Yeah, as you can tell, we're big ice cream guys. So yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. All right, that's doing it for another episode of A Brother's Got Next. Kwab, we'll do it again next week.
Peace.